Welcome to our first Mithril International podcast, and today I have our very own international tax lawyer, Jonathan Brathwaite, and we have a really exciting session with regards to the Pandora Papers in store. So Jonathan, what exactly are the Pandora Papers, just so that we can, get the context out there? So could you please tell our audience what the Pandora Papers actually are?
So the Pandora Papers are information that was obtained by someone from a range of businesses who operate, corporate service providers, trust providers who operate in Panama, the Caribbean, and elsewhere. And that information was analyzed by the International Consortium of Journalists, which is a team of journalists who focus on the issues of cross-border business or international business and wealth management. And then they published a series of reports concluding and trying to explain to people what is actually going on in the world of international business.
So what exactly has the ICIJ uncovered in the Pandora Papers investigation?
Aside from explaining some of the factual information that was obtained from these businesses, they have identified a range of people using who live in one country and using companies or entities in another country to own property, to hold wealth and do various things. What they have not exactly shown is whether this activity is illegal. In many countries, a wealthy person carrying on making private arrangements and owning wealth through companies, trusts, or investment funds in various jurisdictions is not necessarily illegal.
And how does the Pandora Papers investigation implicate Barbados, if at all?
In this set of papers, there was very little so far that has come out in the Pandora Papers.
Okay.
But to be sure, Barbados is an international jurisdiction. It's a jurisdiction where a lot of people come for different reasons to do various types of international business, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we have to wait and see what further reports the journalists are going to make.
So from your perspective as an international tax lawyer, would you say that Barbados is still a safe jurisdiction for clients to utilize to set up their international business platforms?
Yes, it would. Barbados is a politically stable country. It's a small country. It's well known. It has good bilateral relations with many countries, including United States, Canada, the UK, Brazil, many countries Barbados has good bilateral relations with. In addition to political stability, we have a fairly solid banking sector, which is fairly well regulated, especially for a small jurisdiction.
Yes.
And Barbados is a very safe country to visit, to come and work and be in, and you could speak to anyone and they'll tell you that. Yeah.
So would you say that now, after the Pandora Papers investigation has come out, would you say that establishing your wealth in a lower tax jurisdiction can be problematic for clients, or is there a way around that?
Yes, it is problematic. It's becoming more problematic because many more countries, the tax authorities of many more countries are enforcing a lot of the laws that they had. A lot of countries are also tax authorities are exchanging information. This all started in 2018 with the OECD and the CRS. And because tax authorities are automatically reporting information across borders to each other, this is increasing every day as more and more countries come online and get on board. And so yes, doing cross-border business, investment, and wealth management is becoming more complex because you have to work out how to do what you're doing while being compliant in all the places that you're involved in.
So Jonathan, given the new era of transparency that you spoke about just now, would you say that it is becoming more and more difficult for clients to keep certain aspects of their business or their wealth either private or confidential?
Yes, it is becoming more difficult to be private. Barbados has introduced a private beneficial owner registry. It is private because the service providers, the lawyers, the whoever's helping the client set up and operate their structures, those persons have criminal liability if they do not maintain the ultimate beneficial owner information. But ultimately, the information remains private because it remains with the service provider unless there is an investigation, and then the information will be handed over to the authorities. This is a change in the sense that before it was kind of up to the service providers and the clients what type of information was held and where it would be held, but that has now changed. But this alone does not mean that there cannot be privacy. There is still the potential for privacy. It's just that the arrangements, people's arrangements have to become more sophisticated in the terms of being compliant.
So, are there still ways, or what ways would you recommend that clients structure their business so that they do remain compliant, but they will still have that level of protection and security that they require? What would you suggest that clients do going forward?
What I would say is that clients should definitely seek to have regulated structures such as private investment funds. They should have active businesses in low tax jurisdictions, or if they're going to do business in low tax jurisdictions, they should certainly have active businesses. They should have offices, employees, directors. If there are wealth management arrangements, as I said, private investment funds, regulated trustees, these are the basic planks of doing good cross-border business in various jurisdictions.
So you spoke a little bit about the private investment funds. Why do you recommend that clients utilize structures like the private investment funds in order to secure their wealth?
Private investment funds are regulated or institutional entities. Regulated in the sense that in order to set up a private investment fund, you have to make an application to a regulator. You have to tell the regulator a lot of information about that business. You have to do regulatory reporting. And you also have a fund manager or an asset manager who also is a regulated person, and that person themselves has to do regulatory reporting. And so this type of regulated environment keeps wealth in a structured environment, which is viewed by banks and other regulated entities as a lower compliance risk, whereas they view structures which are not regulated or which do not ultimately involve a regulated platform or investment fund, they view that as unregulated. And as more and more information begins to flow in the world, and the risk of being caught up or involved in misunderstandings, investigations, or crises, or what have you, with unregulated entities, more and more people are opting to use regulated private investment funds so that they can keep their wealth in an environment which is not flagged as a high compliance risk.
And how has the Pandora Papers exposure impacted Mithril in terms of how Mithril conducts business? Are there going to be any changes that will be made to Mithril's KYC due diligence processes, or just generally speaking, how business is conducted in the company? What do you think may change?
The big thing for us is going to be working more with clients who are using regulated structures, because clients who have unregulated structures are going to find more and more that they will increasingly be flagged by banks and financial institutions as they're undertaking transactions. They're going to be flagged as high compliance risk. And so helping clients who essentially are quote unquote unregulated is going to become a lot more difficult. It's going to become a lot more expensive, both for the client and for us. So for those clients though who don't or cannot transition to a regulated structure, I would say wealth management structures and business structures that have a lot of commercial reality to them, where there is a lot of social proof, there is a lot of physical proof, and so forth, and good systems in place. There are ways around it, but of course these things come at a cost.
Of course.
So as long as the client is willing to pursue good alternatives in order to make sure that they are robust when it comes to compliance, then Mithril will be able to continue to assist.
So Jonathan, do you think that if more clients had private investment funds or structures which were regulated, do you think that would minimize the future risk of a Pandora Papers exposure to occur again?
No, I don't think this is going to reduce the risk of there being another Pandora Papers. I think what the ICIJ is doing, tax justice, and there is a concern in society about unfairness, about criminal behavior, and I think these things are justified and fair enough. I mean, we all live in society, we all live in societies with laws, and a lot of people are concerned. One thing I would have to say is that what the Tax Justice Network and the ICIJ are going to have to do, I think, what they need to do is they need to hire experts, people like us who are in the business, who are trained in tax law, who can actually work much more closely with them in interpreting what they're seeing and the information that they come across. I think they need to do a lot more insight and gain a lot more insight and introspection into why people do cross-border business. No one wants to live in a world where we're not doing international business and carrying on business activity. All countries are different. Countries have different things to offer to the global mix. And it makes sense that the ICIJ and the Tax Justice Network and these people who want to greater transparency, they need to kind of understand what's going on and why, so they don't just start off on a witch hunt and essentially end up being misrepresentative. The Caribbean for a long time has provided a platform because we're small countries. We have a lot less laws. Like the United Kingdom has 70,000 plus pages of tax law. Barbados has less than 300 pages of tax law. It's just that Barbados doesn't need 70,000 pages of tax law to run a legitimate economy because we're a small country. So why would some businesses not find it advantageous to take advantage of setting up a business in a place like Barbados to do some things, and then in larger countries where there's more complexity and bureaucracy, it's worthwhile doing other things. No one comes to Barbados to set up large factories that employ, say, 50, 100, 25,000 people. But a lot of small businesses, owner-managed businesses and entrepreneurs, they do come to Barbados because there's a lot of flexibility and nimbleness and other things that the platform in Barbados can offer them. So the tax justice crowd and the ICIJ crowd, they definitely have some work to do in order to understand and gain more context of things.
And my final question is, do you think that stricter beneficial ownership regimes will be implemented as a result of the Pandora Papers investigation?
Well, I don't think they'll be stricter. I mean, I think what Barbados has done is very strict. The onus is on the clients. It's actually on the service providers, the directors and the service providers, to make sure that ultimate beneficial owner information is properly recorded and kept and available to the corporate registrar if ever the need should arise. That's a very high standard. I don't agree with public beneficial owner registers, because when you make persons' information, private information, public that way, there is a lot of problems. In some countries, there is the reason why some people in some countries set up things like trusts and companies and base their wealth in other countries is there's a whole host of reasons for doing this. And I don't think it's not fair for the Tax Justice Network or the ICIJ to come along and say that all of these people's private information needs to be public. Privacy, we all have a right to privacy,
Of course.
and that's just a human right, a basic human right. So I don't see why their information, people's information, should be made public. You might not like it, you might not understand the reasons for it. I think the ICIJ and those should actually spend some time looking into why people are doing these things. And I think you will find there are some very legitimate reasons for this. And what I will say is that when it comes to criminals and criminal activity, and criminal activity is a facet of human nature. It has always been with us, and as far as we can see, it will always be with us. It will always be a part of human society. And societies will never be perfect, and we will always struggle to deal with criminality as it changes, as people change and engage in different behaviors and do different things, and it has to be challenged over time. But the vast majority of humanity is not criminal. So therefore, on that basis, I think that people do have a right to privacy if they so should choose.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for answering our clients' questions and queries this afternoon, Jonathan.
Okay.
And we would just like to let you know that if you do have any other queries with regards to the Pandora Papers investigation, you can reach out to us via LinkedIn or check out our website. Thank you, guys.